Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of Saints Insider. I'm Zach Ewing with Luke Johnson, and this is the first in a video series we're doing on what we're calling our tipping point season preview. And what that is each weekday between now, which is August the 31st, and next Friday, which is September the 8th, 2 days before the Saints open their 2023 season against the Tennessee Titans, we will have a feature story for you on NOLA.com, in-depth either opinion from Jeff Duncan, an in-depth feature from Luke. Rod Walker has something planned. Maybe it'll be a series of stories. It'll be something that fits into our theme for the 2023 Saints, which is the tipping point. And I have Luke with me because he wrote the first one. It's a feature on Derek Carr. Going to get to that in a minute. But first off, Luke, explain to our viewers how we came up with this tipping point season preview and why we think it fits for the Saints this year.
2023 season is a huge season for the Saints. And when you think about tipping points, you think this thing can go one way or another, kind of depending on how the season goes, right? You look at the last 2 years, the Saints missed the playoffs. Both of those years, they've been struggling to find an answer at quarterback. I don't think we know yet if head coach Dennis Allen is the answer in that position. They've moved on or had the decision forced upon them to move on from two Hall of Famers at the two most important positions, quarterback and head coach in the NFL. So this season is all about figuring out whether this version of the Saints is going to be one that continues on this path of success that they've had under Sean Payton and the rest, or if it goes poorly. I think we could be seeing this team and this franchise in for kind of a rough period. This is a really, really important year for a lot of people. A lot of people have a lot on the line.
Yeah, and we kind of went over some different ways to phrase it, but I like tipping point because if things do tip one way and they go right, we've talked about this on our regular Saints Insider podcast. Like, this could be there is a non-zero possibility this is a legitimate Super Bowl contender. But if they slip backward, there's also a legitimate conversation about Dennis Allen's future, about Mickey Loomis' future. I mean, the possibilities go from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating team in that regard, right? I think a lot of people are when they talk about the Saints, they talk about them in relation to the rest of a kind of a weak NFC South. And you see teams like the Panthers add a lot of young players who are exciting, and they feel like they're on the up. You see the Panthers, they have the number one overall pick in Bryce Young. And, a lot of people are excited about their coaching staff there. A lot of people feel like that franchise is on the up. So the Saints have to keep this thing going if they want to remain relevant in the NFC South. And if they have to be relevant in the NFC South if they're going to be relevant in the NFL picture overall. So this is, like, again, just an incredibly important season for them in so many ways. There's the quarterback, there's the head coach, the general manager. Yeah, they've got guys on this team who are here because they are expected to contribute to a winning team, right? They keep 34-year-old Demario Davis here. They keep 34-year-old Cam Jordan here. Tyrann Mathieu in his 30s. They've got veteran players who belong on a winning team. And you can easily see a path if this team is not able to get it done for the third straight year, where they have to make some tough decisions and say, if we're not going to be a winning team, do we need to have these guys around? So it's just there's so many different things that kind of hinge upon this season and the outcome within.
Yeah, 100%. And so we'll start. We figured where a better place to start than with the biggest name of the offseason, and that's Derek Carr. And that's the story you wrote today. Encourage people, if you haven't already, go to NOLA.com and check the story out. I'll show it to you here. This is feature presentation, couple thousand words, just really, really, really good stuff from Luke on Derek and how the Saints got him, what they expect from him, and what he expects from the Saints in return, Luke.
Yeah, look, this is a rarity. How many times do you have a 32-year-old franchise quarterback with no injury history hitting the open market? I mean, it really just never happens. You can think back at some of these great free agent signings. Drew Brees, obviously, the one everybody here knows. Drew Brees had a messed up shoulder. They weren't ever sure he was going to be able to throw the ball right again. Peyton Manning had a neck injury that might have been a career-ending or career-threatening injury, The Broncos took a big swing on him, a big gamble because they didn't know what he was going to be. It turns out he won the Super Bowl. Tom Brady was in his 40s. Brett Favre was at the end of his 30s. Even the big high-profile addition this offseason, Aaron Rodgers, he might not play beyond this year. It never happens to where there's a guy you can expect to get 6, maybe 7 years, prime years out of him. And he doesn't have these major concerns like Kirk Cousins, maybe. So the only real comparison that you can think of in the last, I don't know, 15 years in the NFL. So he had this golden opportunity to, as a franchise quarterback, pick the place where he gets to just kind of carry on the legacy of him as a player. And obviously, if you're a quarterback, the only thing that really matters is, did you win? And that is why he settled upon the New Orleans Saints. I don't want to say settled upon them like they were, okay, I guess I'll go there. He really legitimately came here thinking, this is a place where I can not only win a lot of football games, I can win a championship. He really believes that. And talking to people within the Saints organization, especially after getting a chance to spend the last couple of months with him, especially after getting a chance to see him operate the team during the preseason, they believe that too. They feel confident because they have the quarterback in the building and they can make a real run at it this year.
Yeah, we talked about tipping point for the Saints. It could be a tipping point for Derek Carr too. He's made 4 Pro Bowls. He's got some Raiders franchise records. The guy's never won a playoff game. And so he has something to prove too. We'll put the link to the story in the description of the YouTube video here. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't already. There's also a companion piece about what teammates have had experiences with Derek about. Luke, take us behind the scenes. For those who don't know, NFL quarterback, I mean, a high-profile player, can be difficult to nail them down for a long interview in the preseason, but you were able to do it last week. Talk to Derek for 15, 20 minutes. What stuck out to you about that conversation and the way he is in those interviews?
So one of the things that somebody told me about Derek is that he's really relational, right? I think it was Demario Davis who said that, and it's really evident when you talk to him face to face. I mean, I know, Zach, you know Derek probably better than anybody here, right? You had a chance to cover him when he was in high school.
Yeah.
But he's somebody who, when he is sitting down with you and you are talking to him, you have his full attention, right? And he doesn't. I've been around quarterbacks who or just athletes in general, where you're talking to them, it feels like they want to be anywhere else but there, which is, it's understandable. This is part of their job. It's not something that people really like to do, to sit down and open up about their lives. But we got 20 minutes to spend with Derek, and he sat down and answered every single one of the questions, including the ones that weren't so fun. And he looks you in the eye and he gives you insightful, thoughtful answers, which is really all we can ask for as reporters. And I think that sort of mentality doesn't just extend to the media. I think you can see that play out with his teammates. And he's genuine, and he's wanting to be there and wanting to know something about you and wanting to make an interpersonal connection, which is, I just think a really good trait to have as a quarterback. It's about so much more than just being out there on the field and being able to throw 30 yards on a rope. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and I think he's got the right demeanor for the job.
Yeah, and you mentioned I've known him a long time. He comes off as very genuine. He's still very polished. I mean, obviously, he had an older brother in the NFL. He's friends with Trent Dilfer, who's been in the media. The guy knows how to talk to the media and make it come across the way he wants it to come across. But he also is genuine, I think. And so the other thing I wanted to hit on before we wrap is, you get the sense with Derek, and I think I do too, that the fire is still very much there, and maybe even burning brighter than it was a couple of years ago. He's had this release from the Raiders. He's kind of been doubted. He's had his chance to restart, and now I think he knows, like, this is the time I need to go prove it.
Yeah, this is something I didn't put in the story, but I think he felt when he was with the Raiders, like, despite being the guy there for 9 years, he was constantly looking over his shoulder and feeling like, whether it was people in the media, people within his own team, wanted to replace him. because he wasn't leading into the playoffs every year or whatever the case may be. And I think that was a big part of why he wanted to come here, right? Was because he believes he is much more than what he was able to show with the Raiders. The Saints believe he's much more than he was able to show with the Raiders. And he is very eager to prove that here, to prove that he can be a consistent winner, and lead a team to division championships, playoffs, and the Super Bowl. And like I said, he's a firm believer that they have what it takes to get here, and a lot of people have kind of jumped on board with that. And everybody you talk to about him says he's a very intense competitor. But I think it's also, like you said, it's driven, and it's driven by wanting to prove himself as one of the league's top quarterbacks. I think a lot of the conversation around him centers is kind of a middle of the road NFL quarterback, and I think that's a fair point to make because of he doesn't have the big stats of the other guys. He doesn't have the big dramatic playoff wins. So he's going to get a chance here to show that he's more than what he's been, and I think he's really motivated by that.
All right. So Luke's story is up on NOLA.com/Saints now. We'll put the link in the description as well. And you've got to be a subscriber. But if you're not and you've listened to all of this, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and get that done. It's a good time to join up and follow our Saints coverage all season long. We'll be back with another tipping point preview with Jeff Duncan tomorrow. He's writing about Pete Carmichael, the offensive coordinator. So that's your tease for tomorrow. And we'll also have a full Saints Insider podcast for you up tomorrow afternoon. He's Luke Johnson. I'm Zach Ewing. Thanks for watching.